These doors are open to all. We welcome diverse ideas of the source of life, diverse needs, diverse abilities. Bring your brokenness and your personal glow. Bring your fatigue and your energy, vulnerabilities and strengths, hopes and fears, anxieties, loves and hopes. For here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, where the human is celebrated, where compassion is strength. Welcome to this place. Together we make it a holy place.
Welcome to the beloved community known as the Unitarian Universalist Church of Amherst. I'm Joe Rautenstrauch, a member of the worship design team. I am joined up front today by Sonia Jensen-Schnell at the piano and Amy Malakowski as song leader. Our minister, Reverend Michelle Buhide, is out of the pulpit today. We are pleased to welcome John Snodgrass as guest speaker this morning. John is a religious studies teacher, a playwright, and author whose books include Supernatural Shakespeare, Sundance, and some sermon anthologies called Chaos. He lives with Elizabeth and their 4 children in Buffalo. But first, let's do what we do best in this congregation and welcome one another, newcomers and long-timers. Let the welcoming begin.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Spirit, draw near. Come as you are, as you were, as love wants you to be, as a friend among friends, in your own harmony. Take your time, have no fear, the choice is yours and we're all here. Take a rest, ease your mind, come on home, right now's the time. Come as you are, as you were, as love wants you to be, as a friend among friends, in your own harmony. Take your time, have no fear, the choice is yours and we're all here. Take a rest, ease your mind, come on home, right now's the time.
Our opening words this morning come from UU Minister Kathleen McTague. Into this home, we bring our hunger for awakening. We bring compassionate hearts and a will toward justice. Into this home, we bring the courage to walk on after hard losses. Into this home, we bring our joy and gratitude for ordinary blessings. By our gathering, we bless this place. In its shelter, we know ourselves blessed. Like many Unitarian Universalist congregations, it is our custom when we gather to light a flaming chalice. The chalice is a cup or vessel that symbolizes the gathered community. The flame represents the spark that each one of us brings to represent the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of our commitment to bring more compassion and justice to the world. Please join me in speaking our chalice lighting words. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of life. Each week, as we light the chalice to symbolize the gathered community, we also acknowledge that our church is built on holy ground that was first cultivated and occupied by the Haudenosaunee and those known as the Neutrals. We honor them. We honor them as the original keepers of the land. We offer this libation as a giveaway, a symbol of our respect for and deep connection with the land. May we be good stewards of the land, and courageously cultivate community with all living things. Together we weave a tapestry of reverence and belonging. Our song of intention this morning is found in the gray hymnal, number 38, Morning Has Broken. The words will also be projected up front. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one night Eden saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
We are a beloved community, a gathering of people who have chosen to journey together, to encourage one another, and to be part of something important and life-changing. Because we aspire to be such people, we make bold promises about how we will be with one another. Whether today is your first time or you've made UU Amherst your longtime home, you are invited to share in our sacred promise. Together we promise to gather in compassionate community to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, and to speak wholeness for ourselves, our children, and our world. We come to the church to find our center, to be reminded that we are part of something much larger than ourselves, and that we are held in a love that defies all understanding. And so we bear witness to one another's joy and pain. We make room in the circle in our hearts for all that we bring. You'll note that the table where we acknowledge our joy and pain is round, a gathering place. Even as you bring your individual hopes and cares, you are part of a circle of love. So gather around, exchange a glance, a smile, even an encouraging touch. We can let go of neat lines and embrace the messiness of community. Come forward and place your stone in the company of others.
This is the sound of one voice, one spirit, one voice, the sound of one who makes a choice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you, helping each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices three, singing together in harmony, surrendering to the mystery. This is the sound of
Let's share a few breaths as we expand our circle to include those who may not be present, but whom we carry in our hearts. Those who are ill, those who are in pain, either in body or in spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. We are part of a web of life that makes us one with all humanity, one with all the universe. We are grateful for the miracle of consciousness that we share, the consciousness that gives us the power to remember, to love, to care. May it ever be so in our lives. Amen, and blessed be.
For our time for all ages this morning, I'd like to share a traditional story of the Haudenosaunee, the indigenous peoples of Western New York. Long ago, Birds, trees, animals, and people knew each other's languages, and all could talk together. In those days, the trees of the forest grew very large and strong, and at last they came to know their strength too well. They became selfish and proud and quarrelsome. Each tree boasted that he was the greatest and the strongest. Each one struggled to gain for himself the most earth, the best air, the brightest sun. One day, the trunk of a great maple tree tried to crowd out an ash tree. The ash, of course, thought he had just as much a right to stand there as the maple and would not stir a limb. "Get out of my way," said the maple. "I am greater than you and of more use to people, for I provide the sweet water for them to drink." "Indeed, I will not," said the ash. "I am greater than you and of more use, for I provide tough wood from which hunters make their bows." At this, the trees fell to wrestling. Back and forth, in and out they swayed, each trying to throw the other to the ground. They forgot that they were brothers in the wood. The maple threw his huge trunk against the ash, who sent the maple back with a great push of his strong elbow. For a time, the south wind watched them writhe and twist and try to throw each other to the ground. Then he said softly, "You, maple, do not cause the sweet water to flow for people. Nor do you, ash, make your wood grow pliant and tough for their bows." "Who does then?" they asked defiantly. "Listen," said the south wind, "and you will hear." Then the maple and the ash stopped their struggle. They bent their heads low and close to listen. So close that an arm of the maple slipped through an arm of the ash, and as they stood there listening, each with an arm locked in the arm of the other, the south wind gently swayed them to and fro, and then a voice was heard singing, "The mother of all things." Thus it was that the ash and the maple learned that it was Mother Earth who gave to them their life and power and strength, and that they were brothers because they had one mother. The ash and the maple whispered this secret to the birds. The birds listened and went and told the animals. The animals listened and told the people, and thus all of the earth children learned that there is one great mother of every living thing, and that all are siblings. And now, whenever two trees lock arms lovingly and the south wind sways them gently to and fro, the same voice can be heard singing, "The mother of all things." An elderly man was sitting on a park bench, just watching the squirrels run, watching the leaves blow, watching the world go by. And there on the bench across the path, a little boy sat down, pulled out a candy bar, a full-size candy bar, unwrapped it, swallowed it whole. The old man was amazed. He was even more amazed when the boy pulled out a second full-size candy bar, then a third, a fourth, a fifth, and did the same thing. And as the little boy was pulling out his sixth candy bar, the old man said, "Excuse me there, son. I don't think all that candy could really be good for you." Little boy looked at him and said, "You know, old man, my grandfather lived to be 107. The old man said, "Oh, did he live that long by eating a lot of candy?" Little boy said, "He lived to be 107 by minding his own damn business." I was going to share that before the opening words, and then I looked out and there were some children here. And So I thought I would do you all a favor, because then I had this picture in my head of us at coffee hour asking the children how they're doing, and they just all say, "Mind your own damn business." I thought, that's not the gift. That's not what I want to be remembered for here. All right, but now I feel much better. Now I feel like we can do this. Elizabeth and I have a lot in common, which is a relief because I didn't know her that well when I proposed. We had never been on a date or spoken on the phone or even kissed. She was my big sister's friend. We had been introduced a couple of times, and each time I thought, yep, that's the girl I'm going to marry. But neither of us was available. So when I heard that she was single, I hopped on a train, left the trailer in the Virginia forest, showed up at her apartment on the island of Manhattan. I knocked on the door. She let me inside. And I said, "I think we should have children together." And her eyes got really wide with surprise. And she said, "Do you mean get married?" And I said, "Well, of course, get married." And she said yes. And last month, we celebrated our 17th wedding anniversary. Well, thank you. I know, that's not where anybody thought that story was going at the time. I sometimes sort of think of it as an arranged marriage, like God or fertility goddesses or ancestral ghosts set this up. And that's good because statistically, arranged marriages tend to last longer than the ones people pick for themselves. So we became engaged and then got romantically involved. And then it was a pleasant surprise to find that we do have a lot in common. But there are a few areas in which we cannot find common ground, and one of them is pancake syrup. She prefers genuine maple, like the watery flowing real thing, while I prefer the fake butter-flavored slime. She likes the glass bottle shaped like the moonshine jug. I like the plastic squeeze bottle shaped like Mrs. Butterworth. Elizabeth can't believe it. How can I be so picky in my choice of reading and so hillbilly in my choice of pancake syrup? She reminds me, it's not even made out of maple. It's corn syrup. And I remind her that corn sugar is just as natural as maple sap. Corn and maple have a long history of cooperation here in Western New York. The indigenous cultures, the Haudenosaunee, lived mostly on corn that they farmed, often sweetened with maple sugar. In some indigenous cultures, trees are known as the standing peoples, citizens in the community of life, neighbors with human villages. In her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, Robin Wall Kimmerer wrote, "Trees constitute the Environmental Quality Committee, running air and water purification service 24/7. They create habitat for songbirds and branches for swings. Centuries of their falling leaves have built this soil. And how much of the oxygen in our valley comes from our maples? How much carbon is taken away from the atmosphere and stored away?" She writes, "We can assign an economic value to maple timber or gallons of syrup, but ecosystem services are far more precious. Yet these services go unaccounted for in the human economy." That's the problem with quoting Robin Kimmerer, is that you find that one great sentence, and then the next sentence is great too. And then next thing you know, it's like, yeah, I think what these people really want would be for me to just get up here and read a chapter of that book. That's the end of that quote. The maple is said to be the leader of the standing peoples of the forest. And this is because like a good leader, it is the first to show generosity. In a story told by Mohawk elder Tom Porter, the Creator said during creation, once the snow starts to melt, that maple tree is going to be the first one that's going to wake up. Its blood is going to start to flow. And you can cook it, that sap, and it turns into a sweet syrup. You can even make sugar out of it, and then throughout the year, you can use that sweetness of the maple to put in other food, to make it nice and sweet and good. As bare forest trees sleep through winter, the maple must awaken early so that its buds can sprout new leafy branches that'll soak up the summer sunlight. So the maple buds huddle, poised to spring into action. Once their light sensors pick up the first signs of lengthening days, they send urgent messages to the roots, which have been storing starch. It's time to shrink those starch particles into sugar, liquefy it, and send it up the trunk's long veins to feed new growth at the top. The tree makes a lot of this sugar water, enough to share with other inhabitants of the forest. Some people say that humans learned about maple sugar from watching the squirrels. As the long New York winter wears on and the supply of stored acorns runs low, squirrels will begin to gnaw on the maple bark and drink the sap that flows from it. Returning the next day, a diligent squirrel will find that a sugar crystal has formed on that spot, and they'll nibble on it for sustenance. The people took this a step further. Sap gatherers would cut a shallow slit into the trunk, about 3 feet from the ground, and insert a reed or a bark funnel to guide the flow of liquid into a wooden barrel. This barrel was a hollowed section of a tree. You've got to remember here, when the indigenous peoples made maple syrup, it was done entirely without metal. All of the tools involved were wood and stone. And I'm not saying in the sense of primitive, but in terms of, wow, what an incredible feat of engineering. These buckets of raw sap could be poured into these long, sled-like troughs, also made from hollowed trees. Then the thin liquid had to be distilled and concentrated, so in the nights it was left to freeze, the water rising to the top while the sugar condensed below. And in the morning, a sheet of ice could be removed from the top, and then in daylight, more water could be removed by boiling. This was done by heating stones in a fire, ladling them into the trough, and heating the syrup to evaporate the liquid. It's a lengthy process, condensing 40 gallons of sap into a single gallon of syrup. But it wasn't constant work. It allowed plenty of time for conversation and storytelling. Finally, the dense concoction could be shaped into puck-like discs or pounded into sugar for storage in birch bark wallets. This would become the sugar supply for the year ahead. When the maple begins its upward growth process, the bark absorbs solar heat to help move the sugars upward from the roots to the top. And this warmth will melt a ring in the snow around the trunk, which is a clear sign that sugar season has begun. In Haudenosaunee belief, the sweetness ascending from the ground upward through this tree is a sign from the Creator that the covenant with humanity has been renewed. So villagers will gather in a circle around a large maple and give thanks to it by burning incense and tobacco. Just as the sugar rises from underground to the surface, the fragrant smoke will rise from the earth to the sky. And a faith keeper will offer a thanksgiving song to the tree and also to its creator. Then a campsite would be established which might be occupied for several weeks as the trees were tapped and the sap condensed. Returning from the sugar camp to the village in the early spring for corn planting, villagers would bring not only sugar but also maple medicines. Maple leaves and bark could be boiled into a tea to ease liver and spleen discomfort. Maple tonics could be used to stabilize blood flow and clear blockages from vital organs. The sugar could be melted in water to make cough syrup or to soothe an upset stomach. And we can forget that sweetness is also medicinal. We today have access to so much processed or synthesized sugar that we don't necessarily think of it as medicine. We might even think of it as the opposite, since the amount of sugar we consume can be very dangerous. But the reason we love sweet foods is that they make us feel happier and more energetic. Kids instinctively love candy. It's just, once they've had it, they can't understand why we would eat anything else. Even as adults, we still use treats medicinally. Maybe if our sweetness came from a relationship with a tree, instead of a grocery store checkout line, we would appreciate it as spiritual medicine instead of a guilty pleasure. The maple is the leader of the trees because it is the most generous. It may be hard for us to imagine a tree as a role model because humans and plants are just so different. The tree reaches deep into the ground and long into the past, high into the sky with a lengthy possible future ahead, while humans have a short time to live and share our stories. And yet, both are capable of strong resolve and quiet dignity. As Oneida educator Pam Colorado wrote, there is a lot we can learn from the standing peoples of the forest. She wrote, the tree collects, stores, and exchanges energy. It breathes with the winds, which tumble and churn through greenery exquisitely fashioned to purify, codify, and imprint life in successive concentric rings, the generations. We can observe the tree to emulate, complement, and understand our relationship to this beautiful, life-enhancing process. Passing maple trees on my drive here today, I got to thinking, a sugar maple can live 400 years. So some little helicopter seed that danced on the wind and touched down in 1623 could have grown into a tree, provided sugar for the indigenous peoples, witnessed the first English settlements, and it could still be there, providing essential services, removing carbon from the air, holding the soil together, providing sweet sap for maple sugar and syrup. We, the people in this room, might not have 400 years ahead of us. But in the time that we do have, we can work and cooperate to hold steady to provide some stability and continuity. Leave the campsite a little bit cleaner than we found it, and share essential sweetness with each other. Thank you.
Our song in response is found in the Gray Hymnal number 28, View of the Starry Realm, written by Norbert Chapek, founder of Unitarianism in Czechoslovakia in 1921, and martyred for his faith by the Nazis in 1942. We will sing verses 1, 3, and 4.
You, the starry realm of heaven, shining distant empires sing, sky song of celestial children, turns each winter into spring, turns each winter into spring. You, the one within all forming, in my heart and mind and prayer, you, my guide through hate's fierce storming, courage in both life and death, courage in both life and death. Life is yours, in you I grow tall, seed will come to fruit I know. Trust that after winter's snowfall, walls will melt and truth will flow. Walls will melt and truth will flow.
As our service draws to an end, our service to the world is ready to begin. UU Amherst Board Chair Randy Kent will come up and tell you about some of the opportunities to connect and serve in the days to come. Randy?
Thank you, Joe. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here, both in person and online. Yes, I am your elected board chair. I'll skip my usual joke after that. Mark your calendars for Sunday, April 23rd, when Reverend Michelle will be offering a workshop on communications skills following a regular service. The workshop, which will take place at noon that day, is sponsored by the Leadership Development and Nominating Committee. For those of you who might have missed it, Easter is next week. Sunday, April 9th will be a special day for all ages. I understand the Easter Bunny might be making an appearance, and there will be crafts for kids during the service and a candy-free toy prize egg hunt following the service. Please invite friends and relatives to partake in this special day. And of course, we would be remiss if we didn't invite you to participate in supporting the ministry and mission of UU Amherst with your financial gifts. You'll find a green basket at the back of the chapel to receive your contributions, or you can give online by going to our website, uuamherst.org, and clicking on the giving link, or text your gift to the number on the screen. Sorry, these are all high-tech stuff I don't do. Throughout the month of April, we'll be offering with the Green Justice team, who are raising funds for our upcoming second Living Green Festival in September. Information for giving can be found on the back of your order of service. Your gifts and participation are important because we pick fruit from trees we did not plant. We drink water from wells we did not dig. This is as it should be, so long as we dig and plant for those who come after us. Your generous giving supports the work of the congregation. Thank you.
Travel light and travel easy till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend. May the road rise up to meet you as you leave your past behind. I will think about you gently, and I'll hold you in my mind. Travel light and travel easy till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend.
Please join me as we close our service with these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Together we have sanctified this space. If you have found strength and comfort here, share some out there. They need it. Remember that you are blessed and you are a blessing and you are not alone.
I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister up, she